How's it, everyone? Welcome to another string review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and recently I tried out the new Solinco Hyper G round string, and I was actually pleasantly surprised at the level of control that string got. I've said in the past, Hyper G isn't my favorite out of the Solinco lineup, but I was surprised enough by the Hyper G round that it made me want to revisit that original Hyper G. So today, I am reviewing the original Solinco Hyper G. Let's check it out. So the Solinco Hyper G, I'm sure a lot of you know and love. It's been around for a while and it is one of the most popular polyester strings on the market among intermediate advanced level players. It's a very versatile string. It has a sharp edged shape. It bites the ball and gets tremendous amounts of spin. This and the Tour Bite are similar in construction, but the formula behind this string is a secret, so I have no idea what it is. But the Tour Bite and Hyper G, they feel very different. Tour Bite has always been my favorite. Hyper G wasn't, but I'm curious to try this again after being pleasantly surprised by the round version. This string is a medium firm string, so in the past when I tried it, it had a little bit of a mushy, dampened feel compared to Tour Bite, which is a lot more crisp, lively. The ball feels like it shoots off the string bed a lot faster, and Tour Bite's feel has always been more my cup of tea. But I know a lot of advanced ball strikers love Hyper G because of the control and the feel and the spin that this string gets. According to rumors, this Hyper G was originally developed specifically for a top 50 ATP player at the time, and rumors were going around that it was developed by a player named Donald Young, who since has kind of faded from the limelight. Check out the channel Cult Tennis for a great video on the rise and fall of Donald Young, but apparently this string was developed by him. But those are just rumors. I have no insider information or anything. Let me know in the comments if you guys can confirm or deny all of these rumors. But regardless, this is still a very popular string among pros, notably the Bryan brothers, Mike and Bob, the greatest doubles pair of all time, love Hyper G, and they use this in a thinner gauge. Speaking of gauge, the Hyper G as well as Tour Bite have a vast array of gauges. They start as thick as 130 and it goes down in increments of 0.05, so it goes all the way down to a 1.05 millimeter gauge. So there's a very, very thin version of the Hyper G. And one set of this Hyper G will run about $13 a set or $170 for a whole reel. So it's relatively cheap. It's the same price as the Hyper G round. Anything under $15 to me is a reasonable price for a poly, provided you're not an extreme string breaker. Alright, so I got the original Hyper G strung up in my Babolat Pure Strike 98. This is the very first racket that I ever tested Hyper G in about 5 years ago, and I just recently tested the Hyper G round in the same string, so I want to test it in the same racket at the same tension. So I'm going to string it at 52 pounds. And I want to see if I can have another second opinion, see if I like this string a little bit more than when I tried it in the past. So without further ado, let's jump on the court and let's try out the Hyper G. So usually I start with the pros when reviewing a string, but before I do that, I want to address the question, has my opinion of Hyper G changed since I last used it about 5 years ago? Well, the answer is no. I still don't love it, but I don't hate it, which is what I said about it before making this video. I understand why a lot of players like it, so let's get into some of the pros of the Solinco Hyper G. First of all, the spin is outrageous on this string. The Hyper G and Tour Bite both grab the ball and impart tremendous amounts of rotation on topspin, forehands, slices, and kick serves. I would say Hyper G and Tour Bite are equal in terms of spin. I can't tell a difference. Coming fresh off of reviewing Hyper G round, the spin on my kick serves was immediately noticeable. The lack of spin on my kick serve was my biggest knock on the round. Original Hyper G has some noticeable rotation, and I saw some diving action that I didn't see with the round. My opponents were consistently returning the ball from above their shoulders, and I could move them around fairly easily. On a few occasions, I was able to force weak returns because my opponent thought my serve was going to go wide, but at the last minute dropped in on the line. The Hyper G also has a decent amount of give. Don't get me wrong, it's still a stiff poly, but not as stiff as Tour Bite, and therefore has a bit more power on flat serves. My flat serves consistently cleared the net and landed near the service line without losing much pace. I was also able to control the direction on my flat without much issue. On the slice serve, I struggled to clear the net at times, but if I focused on making contact at the highest point, the natural spin and trajectory handled the rest. Hyper G felt great on my serves because I felt comfortable using all of the serves to mix and match and keep my opponent guessing. The spinning control on ground strokes is also awesome and is the primary reason why many people love this string. I do want to address one thing that many people have brought up though. Some people feel the original Hyper G with its aggressively shaped profile has a more erratic launch angle than round strings. I do agree with that assessment. That being said, Hyper G kept most of my aggressive swings inside the baseline and I could keep up the pressure with my attacking style without much issue. Starting with my return of serves, I was able to step in and take the ball early. As long as I found the sweet spot, my shot went deep and penetrated the backcourt with pace. The strings had enough response where I was able to return deep into the cross-court corner or change direction and go down the line pretty easily. The slice is another area where the Hyper G shines. The sharp edges keep a nice tight grip on the ball and it glides low over the net. There is one caveat though. Unlike the round version, the original Hyper G has longer dwell time on the slices, so you really have to follow through in front and push through. Otherwise, the grip of the strings will pull the ball down into the net. Spin and control is what Hyper G is known for, but the power level isn't too shabby either for a stiff string. It's not a power string by any means, but the strings have decent pocketing and launches the ball off with decent force. I mentioned the flat serve earlier, but I found decent pace on my ground strokes as well. Even my backhand, which is typically my slower stroke, had good pace and didn't decelerate much as it crossed the net. The Hyper G already has great directional control. Coupled with the decent power on full strokes, I could play my aggressive baseline game and hit corner to corner without much issue. But compared to Tour Bite, I'm not as confident going for short angles or other touch shots. More on that later. I can see why this is such a popular string. When I was on a roll, I felt in complete command of my ground strokes and I felt I could dictate the point in my favor. Lastly, the Hyper G maintains spin generation and tension very well. For such a sharp string, I felt the snapback didn't fall off much as the strings exhibited more wear and tear. There is an initial break-in period just like Confidential and Revolution, but once the strings settle in, the tension stayed stable for hours. Also, it's awesome that the Hyper G has so many different gauge options. A 105mm gauge is unheard of. I know Vocal Cyclone also has some very thin gauges, but aside from them, I don't know any brand that has such a wide range of gauge options. Ytex could learn a thing or two from Solinco since many of their strings only have one gauge. So now let's move into the cons of the Solinco Hyper G. There aren't many honestly, as this is a good string overall, but the cons that exist for me make this string vastly inferior for my game than Tour Bite and Revolution. First, I mentioned the initial break-in period earlier, and this break-in is especially rough. Just as bad as Confidential. There are other strings I've tried that have break-ins like Ytex Quadro Twist, but the Hyper G is egregious. It is so stiff at the beginning. During my initial warm-up, whenever I took a 75% swing, I dumped the ball straight into the net. It took a good 30 minutes or so of aggressive hitting until the strings finally settled. I don't have that long of a break-in with Tour Bite or Revolution. The Hyper G and Confidential have the longest break-ins out of all the strings I've ever played with. Next, the string bed stiffness. The Hyper G is more comfortable than Tour Bite, but this is by no means a comfort string. Anyone with arm issues will likely find Hyper G way too stiff. The stiffness didn't bother me, but what did was the response outside the sweet spot. Whenever I caught the ball outside, I felt a jarring sensation and a huge drop off in power and control. This is true for any string, but it was very noticeable with the Hyper G. I hit a lot of defensive volleys and slices in the net because I didn't catch it cleanly. If I hit near the edge of the frame on an aggressive ground stroke, my shot had no chance of landing in. I found much more of a consistent response with the Hyper G round. And last con, and this is the biggest issue for me, the impact response. The Hyper G is pretty muted for a stiffer string. It doesn't have the crisp response of Tour Bite, which I love. With Tour Bite, I get a very satisfying pop sensation in my arm and the sound is very solid. This does wonders for my confidence and I just have more feel on aggressive swings when I'm aiming for smaller targets. I don't get that with Hyper G. I'm more comfortable swinging away from behind the baseline and forcing mistakes from my opponents, but I'm not as confident going for straight up passing shots into the corners. Response on touch shots like drop shots, angle volleys, lobs, and angle slices isn't the best either. It's not super dead like RPM or Cyclone, but I still want more from a response standpoint. But all of the thinner gauges exist for more feel, so I'm willing to give Solinco a pass for this because those who want more feel can just use a thinner gauge, although you will be sacrificing durability and tension maintenance. But that's about it for cons. I don't hate Hyper G, but I do feel it's a bit overrated because it's so popular. I guess overrated isn't the right word, it's just not something I would take into a league match. So if not me, who is the Solinco Hyper G for? It's for players who want incredible spin and control from the baseline, but also want some pop so they can hit punishing ground strokes and force errors from opponents. This isn't a bad serve and volley string either if you're more of a big server and punch volleyer. If you rely on a more crafty and finesse-oriented game like me, Tour Bite would probably give you the touch and response you want. Overall, Hyper G is a good string, it's just not for me, but I know it's super popular, so I want to hear from you guys in the comments. If you're a user of Hyper G, what do you like about it? I know a review of one of the most popular polys on the market is going to get a lot of different responses, so let me know if you agree or disagree with my assessment. I'm working on a comparison review of the Hyper G Soft and Tour Bite Soft next, so look forward to that as well as my future Hyper G and Hyper G Round hybrid experiment. Thanks for watching this review of the Solinco Hyper G string right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.